Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these. Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts. Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts.
It was very cloudy, earthquake over the north and the south side. Seraphim, thrones and a ark. I'm a melanin in a my cerebral spark. Eyes behold King Selassie, the almighty monarch with dominion, double-edged sword well sharp. I read them sailing a Vatican art from far out. Wailing souls are rotting. Don't fall in a valley of the bloodbath.
Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts. Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts.
I know arrogance, all of the folly get all those sorrow dance. Only rejoice in thoughts, good memory in the files of a cash. Angelical food served in a calabash. Black jungle, Yemassee gone aquadash. Sakanalo, keep a night in dark. One movement, plants of the highest of ash. All over the premises, the mineral wash.
Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts. Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts.
The green grass turning parts of my ras. Enter the great seas of that liquid brass. Gold scepter, place where the liquid stars. Ancestors seated around and a laugh. Such joyful feeling, the smoke no cough. I licking Rastafari around.
Trumpet sound.
I licking Rastafari around.
Trumpet sound.
And then me hear when the cherubim sound, hear them sounding.
Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts. Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts.
And it was cloudy, earthquake over the north and the south side. Seraphim throne on the ark. I'm a melanin in a my cerebral spark. Eyes behold King Selassie, the almighty monarch with dominion, double-edged sword well sharp. And he heard them, bring them up in a Vatican art. So far out, wailing souls are rotting. Don't get caught up in a the bloodbath of the
Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts. Trumpet sounds of golden harps. I saw in a Zion these crystal balls of lightning, thunder in different sorts. 420 Haitians around these parts.
Reggae.
All right.
All right. So, what we got going on, Ross Ben?
This is episode what?
4.
Episode 4 of what?
Alchemical Keys to the Crystal Vaults.
The Alchemical Keys to the Crystal Vaults. Yes, and we got a very special guest on tonight. Hey, we got royalty in the house, you know, the one and only King of Oyotunji. Yeah, the Kaviesi, the Oba of Oyotunji, the African village, is with us this evening. So we can discuss a very important topic, man. Tonight's today's reasoning is all about the Odu. And I'm not even going to try to give the definition. This is why we got the Oba on here, so that we can get the proper interpretation of this cosmology. I know I am the one and only Ras Naim, the Rasta Man Naya of Infinite Treasures. We know we are blessed by the presence of the elder Ras Ben, the one and only Ras Ben, the scribe, the scholar. Yes, mystical revealer. And again, tonight, the very special guest, the one and only heir to the throne, the king of Oyotunji.
Salute.
Yes, I. Oba Ade. Yes, he here with us to get us a little closer to we roots and we culture, you know?
Yes.
Yes, I. But hey, you know how it goes, Kavies. It's a formality. We like to get the vibe right. So
protocol.
With all due respect, Ross Ben, with your permission, I'll go ahead and block the prayer, get the frequency on the proper, you know?
Ashe, brother.
Ashe.
All right. So we're giving glory unto word, we're giving glory unto sound, we're giving glory unto power, we're giving glory unto the Iwa, and we're giving glory unto the Holy One of creation, Emperor Haile Selassie Jah, Rastafari. King of kings, Lord of lords, conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, elect of thyself, light of the world, Haile Selassie. We're giving thanks for this day, for the many blessings and the provisions, for the love, guidance, and the protection all around Bautayanai. We're thankful for this day. We pray it be a strengthening unto we, body, mind, and soul. We're giving thanks for our ancestors, many generations of blood, sweat, and tears. Give us strength in these times to stand in light of the Most High. We're giving thanks for our elders, the wise minds, the knowledge, the understanding, guiding Ayanai through these times. We give thanks for the youth. Their life and love is a light and hope for redemption, liberation, repatriation in the sight of the Most High. And we give thanks for Ayanai Ivine unions, the foundation upon which Ayanai stand in the name of the Most High Jah. Rastafari, Emperor Haile Selassie, and his Ivine Empress, Mama Miga, Empress Menen. Ashe. Amen. Sila. Yes, I. So Ras Ben, man, this one is called the Odu. Give us a little backstory before the Oba takes us through the official. Why are we doing the Odu?
Right. 2022, Jupiter and Neptune. This is what we were saying in the West. Jupiter and Neptune was both in Pisces. They conjunct in Pisces, right? And Pisces is all things 12th house. It's 12th sign, right? And yeah, those that study we know we're Neptunian people, right? They say coming across the Ma'afa, coming across that Atlantic, and all our ancestries being fed to the deep waters, right? Give us this Neptunian spirit, and how Neptune is all about the vibes. Neptune is like the ultimate ruler of we, because what ultimately rules us more time is the vibes. So like the whole thing that played out with Kanye, where yeah, these corporations, they can't control that man. He got the vibe. Adidas had to submit to him, you know? 2022 was a significant year for us. And I have been vibing how Jupiter, because Jupiter in the 12th house is like the marketplace. It's the king of the marketplace coming full circle. How does justice play out in the marketplace, right? So I was witnessing these themes play out in 2022 and 2023. But boom, what happens? We ended up in Miami, Florida, where we saw a lot of Yemenya, Olokun, ocean.
Symbolism.
Yeah,
Symbolism.
a whole lot of things playing out. And then boom, what? We ended up at the Oyatunji village in front of, what we would say in the West is the largest Neptunian shrine in the country, but it's that Olokun shrine. And then we shared the Odu of Oyatunji, it's like really it's the Odu of us as a people. We see it played out so many times, so many ways. I think Kanye and what's been happening with him lately being the biggest example of it. And so it brought about the inspiration, like, boy, if we could get the Oba to really share that Odu and explain to us who we are in that context, it would really help us understand our true value, our true wealth, our true powers of influence, and leverage it better. So that was the inspiration,
I say. Yes, yeah, man. Hey, that's a whole nother episode. Just the dynamics of coming up out of Miami and rolling into the village, and first person we see at the front gate of the village. You know how hard it is to find this man when you get to Oyatunji? It's not easy to find the Oba. It's not because he ain't there, because he's the busiest man in the village.
Works. Absolutely.
He's steady on the work, man. So for this man to meet us at the front gate, like when we pulling up, he's out there working at the front gate. That to me is profound. That's a profound affirmation of the Odu, Yeah. Yes, all right. But Kaviesi, what is this Odu? What is an Odu? And then which one are we talking about? Please offer us some clarity, King. You're on mute. You muted.
Thanks. Thank you for having us. Adupe Pupa. Thank you very much for having us on your show this evening. We're very happy to be here, and hopefully we're able to share, and I'll do my best. I will attempt to try and articulate a bit of the African worldview through their spirituality and how they see the world, and make themselves comfortable within it.
Kaviesi, me.
Yes.
I think you got your Bluetooth on again, and your audio's coming in lower when you got the Bluetooth on. The Bluetooth, we can't hear you as well. We can hear you, but it's a little bit muffled. And in my experience with this Zoom thing, you might have to. Okay, yeah, see what you can do. But yeah, the Bluetooth usually that's better. That's much better.
Okay, I tried to put it on the loudspeaker so the brother sitting here can hear you, but they can hear. Am I coming through?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. There we go. Okay, I can hear you good too. Okay, so starting back anew, thank you for having us on your show. Thank you for allowing us to articulate a bit of the African worldview through the spirituality. And what you're talking about in terms of Odu, Odu is spelled O-D-U, Odu, right? It is a word from the Yoruba-speaking people of southwestern Nigeria. Odu can be loosely translated as a scripture. Because if I say scripture, you understand it much better. Are you still with me?
Still with you,
Hello?
brother.
Okay,
No,
good.
you're still
So,
in there.
okay, so Odu are basically scriptures. Odu are scriptures under the divinatory system called Ifa. By divinatory system, I mean that the oracle, how African people access the future and know what's going to happen. Yoruba people are some of the most advanced African peoples in Africa. They were so advanced, they had a computer system called Ifa. Just like you go to Google and ask Google something and get an answer, the Yoruba people will go to Ifa. Ifa, how do you ask Ifa? Ifa is clearly something invisible. It is the naturalness of us all. It is the enlightenment of us all. The word Ifa means attract to, or to bring in, or to attract to yourself. So when you follow the Odu, you attract to yourself good life. The Odu are basically, there's nothing special like, oh, these are messages from God. The Odu are simply a compilation of every event that has happened, that can happen to a man or a woman in their lifetime. African people over thousands of years look back and said, you know what? The same thing happens to every man and every woman throughout time over time. Let's start logging it down. And when you decide to get out of your character, go out and assault a person and you get locked up, they would log that down. And they would find a remedy to keep people from losing their character. The root word in Ifa is character. Remember, Ifa is the system of divination. Okay, the Odus are the scriptures, but Ifa, under Ifa, I'm just explaining how these Odus come to life. Odus are basically events that happened in life, and they're logged. And there are 16 major Odu. Okay, and it's a binary system. Each of these Odu are represented by little digits, quite like you have what you have when you do your coding. When people do coding and stuff, same way with ones and zeros. Okay, the one represents a one, the zero represents a two. Okay, and so there are 16 major Odus. Under these major Odus, the basic principles of life exist. Now, if you take that 16 and multiply it by 16, you have 256 Odus. So you have 256 Odu that each one of them encompasses every aspect of life that a man, things that can happen to a man or a woman in their lifetime, is locked in each Odu. Each Odu speaks of a different situation that you're going to encounter in your life. So when the priest throws the chain, which is the Okpele chain is like a chain. Imagine a chain like this, a chain in a U, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nuts tied in between each link. Okay, so it's 4 on each side, and it casts that chain. And by the way those nuts land up or down, it represents that 1 or that 2 that I was talking about in the binary system. So once the priest can discern which Odu is this person talking about, then he can tell you. So basically, when Oyotunji was first founded, they went to the deity of the oracle, which is Ifa, the deity of attraction. They asked Ifa with the Opele chain. They cast it, and they said, what is the Odu or the destiny or the scripture for this particular village? Okay. And so when you, not Baba Naim and Daras came to Oyotunji, I, out of the blue, I don't know how it came up, but I just started talking about it because it is essential. The Odu is called Ogbe She, Ogbe Oshe. Now remember, I said there were 16 major Odu. Basically, what happens is each Odu visits each other. So there's Ogbe is the first Odu. It speaks of enlightenment. Oyeku is the second Odu. It speaks of your ancestors. But Ogbe and Oyeku could visit each other and become Ogbeyeku. That's how you get a full Odu. Okay? Or Oyeku will also visit Ogbe. So you get Oyekugbe. You get Ogbeyeku and Oyekugbe. So you have vice versa. And it goes like that throughout the 16, and that is how the 256 is created. Okay? Ours at Oyotunji is Ogbe, which is enlightenment, the head, the gods of creation, the deity of creation, the energy of creation. Ogbe represents enlightenment. Ogbe represents the head rules the body, not the other way around. And then we have Oshe. Ogbe is one, Oshe is the other. Ogbe is actually the first Odu. Can you believe that? And Oshe is second to the last Odu. So it kind of reminds me of the Alpha Omega in a way. You know, we represent the whole beginning and the end, but we just one away from the,
Well, you
from
say
the
the first
Omega
shall
at
be
the
last
end.
and the last shall be first.
Right,
First
right,
shall be
right.
last and the last
So
shall be first.
exactly. And so when I'm going to break down, it's kind of going to go that way, as you're saying. So Ogbeshe, when you open up the book, or not the book, because in traditional times, Yoruba people didn't put their Odu in books. They in their head and pass it down from generation to generation. Because if you write something on paper, according to Yoruba people, you lock it in stone. But to pass down stories, I'm going to have a version of it. And then my children in their lifetime, they're going to have a version of it for their own generation of the same thing. It's just a little different for their generation. So you have these Odu, Ogbeshe. Now, each Odu has a story behind it. And you're supposed to get the wisdom out of the story. Now you see where the Christians and everybody else got it. They got it from the Africans. In order to put wisdom and get wisdom across to other people, you have to put it in a story, make it an allegory or a parable. African, especially Yoruba people, we do not to each other directly use parables. So if I have someone in my household who swears they're right and they're arguing, and everybody, you got 20 people in the house telling them they're wrong, and they continue arguing, I would say to them, 1,000 herdsmen are never wrong. That means that if 9 people talking against you, you clearly wrong. Fucking up. You know, you're clearly wrong. And so the idea of the Odu is to bring the parables to life. So here we go. The Odu Ogbeshe speaks of the time when Orumila, who is like the prophet, you know, like Islam got a prophet, everybody got a prophet. Orumila is the prophet of Yoruba culture who went to seek enlightenment on hills and valleys and rivers and high rocks and things, you know. And as you tell the stories of religions worldwide, it's clearly similar. It's only similar because African culture and religion was the catalyst for all religions in the world. So Orumila is this prophet. He goes to seek the oracle, and he wanted to go to the market and get him a helper. Now, remember, in ancient times, when you got a helper or a slave or somebody from the market, it's not like American slavery. So if I loosely use the word slave, I don't mean what you have in America, okay? Because if you study our culture back home, you understand we had people who would, you know, serve us and we took care of them like a human being. Ifa was told, if you want, after he visited the oracle said, if you want a helper, a slave, or somebody to look after you, a butler or what have you, then you must go to the market and buy him. But the wisdom of Ifa, which is the oracle, told him that when you go to the first slave or the first helper, what have you, that makes eye contact with you, that's the one you must get. Ifa gets to the market. He goes, he see people working on different things. And people are saying, you know, hired for help. I work for money. I help, you know, hired for help signs everywhere.
Excuse me. You mean Ifa or Orumila?
Oh, sorry, Orumila. And see, the problem is a lot of times in the diaspora, we mix Ifa and Orumila together, but they're two different people. So pardon my diasporianness. Well, and I also talk about that sometimes too.
No worries, brother. No worries,
yes.
Man. Hey, you see, I'm cleaning on every word. We got to get this part right, you know?
Yes, I share. So Ifa goes to the market to look for this helper,
Orumila.
Everyone has help wanted
Orumila
signs.
Goes Orumila.
Right, exactly. Thank you. He gets there and he recognizes that no one in the market is making eye contact with him. No one is connecting with him as a helper. So he keeps walking and he sees this one person who's sitting in under the table, and it looks as though he have legs, but his legs is under the table, and he makes eye contact with Orumila. So Orumila is like, okay, this is the one. This is the one. But soon as Orumila goes and give him the money, you know, for his time or what have you, Orumila looks up and the guy doesn't have any legs. So Orumila is wondering, wait a minute, how did Ifa tell me to connect to the first person I see, and the first person I see doesn't have any legs? How is he going to help me farm? How is he going to help me enrich my real estate? How is he going to make me greater? How is he going to help me make money? Because if you invest in a helper or what have you, then it needs to kick back. Orumila was like, wait a minute. He was ready to give up his faith in Ifa. Not faith, but he was ready to give up his understanding of the Ifa science. Okay? So, but being a good steward of the science, Orumila took the helper home. He takes the helper home, and he's just following the wisdom. You know, you never know when you're following wisdom, because sometimes you have to do things and you don't even know why you're doing them until the end product arrives. And the end product is inevitability, and the end product is infinity. So basically, there is no end product. But we as humans, we like to see an end product. So Orumila was like, look, I don't see an end product. I bought a helper. He can't help me. He can't kill the guard. He can't do anything. He gets to the house. He has to carry the man home. He has to put him on his back, his helper. He got to put him on the back and carry him to the house. Orumila gets to the house. Now the helper has to eat. The helper has to drink. The helper has to go to the bathroom. Orumila has to give him food. He has to give him water. He has to carry him to the bathroom. He got to carry him to the lake. Orumila is wondering, what type of thing is this that Ifa is telling me? I wanted somebody to help me enrich my farm, not take money from my pocket to feed them and house them and clothe them, take them to the bathroom. So Orumila, being a good steward of the science of Ifa, which is the science of the universe and attraction, he continued to do it. One day, he goes inside where his helper is, and he notices his helper is making something with his hands. And he said, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm a beater. I make beaded crowns. You know, the same crowns that the kings wear to this day. He said, I make beaded crowns. Orumila had never seen it. This is before beaded crowns was invented. Okay? This is before beaded crowns was invented. So Orumila go in and see the helper making beaded crowns. He asked him, like, how did you learn it? He said, this is a family tradition, He said, well, look, this is what you do. Keep making them, and I'll go show them to my friends. So he made a couple. And then Orumila took him around. You know how they say your work speaks for yourself. Orumila took him around and showed it to his friends. They was like, we never seen nothing like this before, but it's very beautiful. It's very, very well intricately decorated with beads and things. So Orumila came back to this helper and he said, look, man, I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw a party because all of my friends say they like them. And I have 4 friends, which is Olokun, Shango, Obatala, and another one of them king deities, Ogun. They all said they want an order of 25. Each of the Orisha, 4 Orisha, 125. That's what? Ooh, that's a quick 100, real quick. And then if you charging, you know what I mean? Back in the day, you charging 5 cowrie shells for one, you got 20, 25 cowrie shells coming in, real quick. So Orumila went back to his helper and said, we're going to make a night, a party night. We're going to buy some drinks and some food, kill a goat, kill a ram, and cook food. And we're going to have all of the Orisha, not just the 4 that want to put in orders already, but we're going to have all the Orisha come and party with us. Display all of your work, Mr. Helper. So they planned a date. All the Orishas came. Everybody came in. Olokun came in with the ocean. Shango came in with thunder and lightning. Ogun came in with the warriors. Elegba came in with all of the street people. And then Oshun came in with the beauty, the lovers, all of the lovable art and all of the decorations of the artisticness of femininity. Yemoja came in with the fish. So all of the deities came in with their accoutrements and looking good.
Came with all the street people?
Yeah, Eshu came with the street people. Somebody got to protect the street people. I mean, now in Yoruba culture, everybody gets protection. So they're partying, they're having a great time at this African ball. And it's time for Orumila to pull out the crowns and show everybody what, the crowns. So Orumila unveils all of the crowns. Everybody is oohing and eyeing and oohing and eyeing. Clearly, the helper, he can't walk, so he's sitting on the floor because he don't have any legs. And Orumila didn't tell nobody who made them. Nobody know who made these things. And so Olokun steps forward, the deity of the ocean. And Olokun says, I'll buy them all. And all the other Orishas said, well, Olokun, how you going to buy them all? Like, we want some too. Olokun said, I'm the deity of wealth. And so in order for me to maintain my wealth, I have to buy them all. And then I sell them to y'all. Capitalism. African capitalism. So Olokun takes all of the crowns and purchases them. And so that's why to this day, Olokun and beads are synonymous with each other. So the Yoruba people traded beads as a currency, used beads and cowrie shells as a currency. Because of this Odu, they were able to be the ones who can take snail shells, and I think it's crystallite, I forget the mineral, but you mix them together to make glass. So the Yoruba people have been making glass long before the crackers, the Europeans in Europe. Okay, and so I'm just lining up the history, the science, and the allegory together. So Olokun becomes the deity of the glass, and Olokun is the deity of all of the wealth in our culture as Yoruba people. That's why at Oyotunji we have the biggest temple is Olokun Temple, the deity of the black people and Neptune. And on our sign we have a picture, three faces of Olokun, the deity of the black people in Neptune. So we're tuned in that regard. So Olokun became very famous from this one night. This one story where she bought all of the crowns. And Olokun's primarily female. She bought all of the androgynous, but primarily female. Olokun bought all of the crowns, and then she became the deity of the crowns. And so the moral of that, and Orumila became extremely rich, as you can imagine. Orumila and his so-called helper flew first class all over the world.
That's the ultimate cop and flip. The ultimate cop and flip.
Yes. And so basically that story tells us to pay attention to our readings, because sometimes the weirdest things will happen. You can't see it until the end, but if you stay steadfast, it will happen for you. So basically Orumila ended up what we have at Oyotunji. See, that's the reason why that's the Odu of Oyotunji. You see, because at Oyotunji, we have to take in Black Americans. Black Americans represent let me back it up. We have the need to go and get help from our people, but we don't know that our people are that man whose legs you couldn't see. His upper body worked, but once you pull back the curtain or the tablecloth, he had no legs. That is the African American people. And if we have any commune, any institution, any temple or anything, we have to take those people in. At least here at Oyotunji, we got to carry them on our back, bring them all the way in, house them, feed them, give them clothes, give them shoes. But one day, we're going to find their true wealth. And their true wealth will show. And the head of the compound and the helpers shall all, drink champagne and eat cake or eat kale.
Don't underestimate the workers.
Yeah. So that's the history. That's what I have to say about that.
Hey, I bear witness, Kaviesi. This is why
you one of them.
Close to me, because when I was doing my little tinkering with beads and whatnot way back when, I had my folks that would support. But when I rolled into Oyotunji, I rolled in there with the youngest Babalawo amongst us. Abayomi brought me up in there, and it didn't take long for the rest of my peers, like yourself and the Babatundes of the world and the Efumlades of the world, the Ade Tokuns of the world, to see like, this brother has found some kind of critical contribution to make, and just reaffirm to me like, bro, this has value. It has wealth, like more than what I was able to see before, because coming out of the Western world, my working with certain stones, this wasn't something that was valued amongst most of my peers when I was 20 years old. You know what I'm saying? It's popping now. Everybody wants stones wrapped, crystals wrapped. Everybody in the stones and crystals.
You was ahead of your time, brother.
when we came in, man, folks was
Listen,
looking
hold
at
on,
me
hold
like,
on.
yo,
This
what's
guy,
wrong
when he
with this
first
dude?
moved to Oyetunji, he used to sleep in a copper pyramid, man. A
Hey,
copper pyramid. On top of the van, under the full moon, talking about constellations. I knew about constellations in the full moon, but the copper, now, since the pandemic, everybody on copper. Everybody. They were talking about it yesterday, ain't it? They said you can scrape your tongue with copper, rub copper under your nose. I said, I say we, but it was you, because I got to throw myself in it. I was like, we used to sleep under copper.
yeah, you done know. You done know. Yeah, man. Ross Ben, what's your takeaway from that old dude, bro? Because clearly it moved you when the Oba shared it with us back in November, man. What's
Well,
your angle on it, Ross Ben?
I really just see it reflecting we is, like you say, the Black American, for lack of a better phrase, but y'all know who I'm speaking on. How, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yes.
you.
All right.
Nice to trainer.
But how, man, how we, whatever we buy, like how Olokun, once he was like, yo, I value this. He became master of the marketplace. And our power of influence and endorsement and how that plays out. Like you say, the whole
basketball, everything.
yeah, and I think even that whole thing that's been going on with Kanye lately, it really speaks to it. You know, how Adidas, they tried to let.
I just want to jump in. You say he, but Olokun is she, primarily she.
Oh, thank you.
She.
How Kanye, Adidas tried to out leverage him. But nah, like you say, Olokun, she really embodies that wealth and abundance, and she's queen of the marketplace. Like, she rules. Once she puts a value on something, that's the value that stay, and move the marketplace. That's a big part of who we are as a people, and how, because we don't know that, we get exploited, and that true value of us don't play out. At the end of the day, we, like you say, we in service, without our own legs, needing someone else to care for us. I just see the old dude playing out so many ways in what they call the Black experience. And to see it microcosmically in 2022 by coming to Oyetunji, yeah, man, it was very inspirational, eye-opening. Yes.
Yeah, even before we got to Tunji, right? We was in South Florida, Kaviesi, and we was at this spot called the Blue Oasis. First day down there, and just instinctively, like Ross was like, "Yo, we out there first day traveling Mercy." He was like, "Yo, Ross, we need to block a prayer to Olokun. We need to ask Olokun for abundance and prosperity and grace on." And I'm like, "Yo, I didn't have no hesitation, but I'm like, what is it? What And I kind of got it. We in South Florida. You all around the water.
But what made me say that is because we was in Miami for days, and we never got to the ocean. But we was by water. We was by fresh water every day, right?
The new river.
So it wasn't about Yemenya. We ain't get to the ocean. But I know, well, at least I had been told that all water ultimately travels to Olokun. You could be in a freshwater creek in the mountains.
All water.
Yes. So I, reading the message in the moment, like I'm in Florida, I'm surrounded by ocean, but I never got to the ocean, but I was by fresh water every morning, throughout our movements in the day. We at the Blue
Yeah.
Oasis touching this fresh water. So I felt like it was about Olokun, you know? That was kind of what inspired that there in Florida. And then from there, that's what, like Ross is saying, for them 3 and 4 days in South Florida, coming up through the Carolinas, the first place we hit was Oyatunji Village. And then we in front of this huge Olokun shrine. And I couldn't help but notice, like, yo, I got the message.
What they say, watch what you wish for, right?
Uh.
Oh. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, hey, my
and then you
man.
shared the Odu.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Odu popped out, and I'm talking about Olokun.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah. I say about, and you know that brings to mind one thing. And so she's talking about Kanye. Them just African people down there being loud, in the village dirt road streets.
The village is alive.
Since you brought up Kanye,
the village is alive. It's Saturday night. The village is it's about to be on and popping.
Yeah, the village is alive. We got 3 people and like 4 chickens and a goat. It's a live city tonight, brother.
All right.
But in terms of Kanye, since that's a national issue, a very hot button issue, everybody like to talk about it. I have something to say. I think that it takes a Gemini, first of all. Let me say that.
Never.
It takes a Gemini, not a Scorpio. Scorpio think they not. Take a Gemini. Because remember, if you look at all of the people who ever changed the arts or the communications and blew the top off the roof, it's always Gemini people. Always. Just go back and look at them. Prince, Biggie, Tupac, Kendrick, the list goes on and on and on. 3 Stacks, all of them. All Gemini. They do it the best. So for Kanye to be a Gemini, we just got used to Gemini just being, Stephen Fletcher type of shit. You know what I mean? Dancing and buck dancing on the stage for massa. But they have a different side, and they're always the ones to show you in the mirror who you really are. So when I saw that Drink Champs with Kanye on there, I saw that way later. I had all of the media in my head. I mean, not in my head, but it's just gonna pass through. But it was passing through. And it was all what we always say. Mental issues, loco, too much money, too much, all of this, too much of that, just not dealing with what the brother really saying. So when I finally, I wait late. I waited months. So when I finally got to see the Drink Champs, I said, this brother talking like my father talked. He basically saying he want for his people what the Jewish people got for their people.
Yes.
And if you call that anti-Semitic, maybe you Jewish people need to go back and find out what y'all hiding from everybody. Okay? Because you're clearly making it worse by hiding. Okay? Clearly the kid is very articulate in what he's saying. Yeah, he's like a typical Gemini. He's gonna bring some 808s to it and some hi-hats to it and some snares and some drum beats, but it's gonna be clear. And if you got a clear mind, you can hear clearly what he's saying. And he's the only what y'all call rappers. I don't know what they wrapping up. They didn't wrap up nothing yet. He's the only one that said that. That said that there is clearly an undercover operation geared to destroy Black people through the music, and the Jewish people are getting the money. It's on the Breakfast Club. The Jewish man was on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne and them. He said it himself. Charlemagne asked him. He said, "Well, why you having the, you promoting death?" He said, "I gotta work. I gotta make a job. I got a job too." I said, "But your job is the promotion of death amongst Black people." He was like, "Well, I gotta work. It's about money." And Kanye exposed it. So hats off to him. Kanye, I know he like to be put up high, but I'm gonna put him way beyond what he even thinking. I'm gonna put Kanye with King Tutankhamen.
Wow.
I'm gonna put Kanye with King Tutunk, because guess what Tutunk amended? And he did so much work that when you look at books today or go to a museum, they spell his name with a U at.
We lost your audio.
They want to say Tutunk Amun. They want to take Amen out of his name. You can't take the son out of the Tut Unk. So I say Kanye is like Tut Unk Amen because they tried to do the same thing to him. They tried to change his name, they had that whole exhibit running around the country talking about he was white and all this kind of no. Tut Unk Amen was responsible for returning the Kemetic people back to their original consciousness. But what he did was he reopened all the temples because King Akhenaten or Pharaoh Akhenaten decided that we're only going to worship one God, and that God is going to be Ra. Amen Ra. But he forgot about Geb, Shu, Isis, Horus, all these other guys. He said, close all the temples. Only one God. Because he wanted to be immortal under the God by himself. He was being selfish. So guess what Tut Amen did when he came to the throne at 12 years old? He reopened all of the temples. So what Kanye is doing is reopening all of the temples. The temples that were closed from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and 80s. See, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the Temple of Knowledge was open. You had the number 7 temple in New York. Temple number 7, Malcolm Temple. You had the FCLC in Atlanta. You had the Yoruba Temple in Harlem. All the temples were open. And the temples made sure that America burned. You feel me? In those days. Anybody know between the late 60s, America burned just like it did 2 years ago. Okay? Let's not forget. So Kanye reopened those temples. Am I breaking this down? You know, the temples of thought that we think about people like this. Because when Kanye was talking, I was like, oh shit, he must have seen some James Baldwin. He must have seen some Malcolm X or something. Listen to my Obaya Funtala speak or something. Because the way he was articulate and they eating baklava. Not that baklava is a bad thing. I love baklava. You know, I hang with Jewish people. I speak the Jewish language. I had a Jewish lady come to the village last week. She came and said my father inspired her to go back to her culture.
And you chopping up, Kaviesi. Chopping up.
Be American. And the Jewish lady came to the village. Get what she?
I said, I do.
How we doing now?
Better.
Yeah,
okay,
better.
You doing better?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the Jewish lady was just telling me, affirming to me that this African culture made her go back to her Jewish culture. She knew my father when she was 12 years old in New York before the Oyatunji village was built. And she came to the village 50-something years later with her family. Her family consisted of her co-wife, and her husband. Okay. I took them back to my dad's shrine. They did a Jewish, thing that they do for the ancestors. I was thoroughly impressed. I'm like, look at these are Jewish. These motherfuckers run the world. And they up here bowing down in the backwoods to an African. And clearly, if they're from New York and they move back to Israel, that means they got money. Okay. So she moved back to Israel. She got a commune in Israel based on traditional Zionism. And she told me, she said, your dad used to come by and see my dad in Harlem, And she said she was about 12 years old. This is back in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s. And she said, your dad loved to sit and hear my father talk about Zionism. And see, she cleared up something for me. She filled a void for me, because when I was a child growing up, my father would always say, a day, you got to think like a Jew. You got to act like a Jew. If there was an example of how you behave in this foreign land called America, behave like the Jewish people behave. And I didn't know what he meant until this Jewish lady came and she told me that the only reason my father used to come by and talk to her father was because he loved the idea of Zionism. But he wanted Africanism. He wanted Africa nation, not Zion nation. But he's a Black American. not privy to a lot of shit. So he had to have a Jewish man teach him how to be for your own people. They'll tell you in a heartbeat, the Jewish religion is for the Jewish people, my dear. If you wish to join, maybe in your next life, you may be born Jewish, but you will not join in this life.
Next life.
They're very close.
You're chopping up again,
Breaking up
Kanye.
again.
The Nostra means something for us. Something for them. Well, we're going to have something for us. Have a Cosa Nostra, which means something for us. All Kanye's saying is that when will we African people in the diaspora have a something for us, just like they have? But Kanye, I need, hello?
That speaks straight to the Odu. It speaks straight to the Odu. That we are the real capital in the lism called America capitalism. We are.
From day one.
From day one. We are the nuts and bolts. We are the X factors that take something, nothing and make
so let me share this.
You chopping up again, Kaviesi.
Let me share this. This is a good anecdote. So I got another guy. He's from Nigeria, right? Can you hear me? I'm coming through clear?
Yeah, I got you now.
Okay, I got a guy here. He's from Nigeria, and I took him in, just like Owumilat took in the guy, you know, with no legs. I took him in. Actually, I'm sitting next to two no-legged niggas sitting right next to me. Okay, yeah, they're right there. There they go. I told him to listen. I told him to come upstairs and listen to what we're doing. You got to listen to this. Because this is y'all. I had to let him know. I got two no-legged Africans here. So, but here's the point I'm making, is that the Nigerian comes to town and he doesn't know how African we really are. You see? Because remember, many years ago, my father said, African American once again, in their culture, appreciate it. We market it. Naim, I saw you just making some African something right there just now on camera. Okay? So we have the Nigerian here, but I let him know that we together. Trust me. But when you come here, you want to see us being American. You want to see us driving BMWs and having tile floors and all this shit. We ain't there yet as a people. We have very wealthy people, but as a people, we're not wealthy. Okay? So that means that you come to America, you got to see our struggle as an African coming from Africa, you know, because it's a total different ball game. Over here, we working hard to get it, and we still don't have it. In Nigeria, the middle class over there got servants. Okay, over here we don't have that. So that means that it would take us at least 100 years, as my father said, before we can conceptualize and get into at least 3 generations. What we're talking about in terms of African worldview, it'll take 3 or 4 generations to have it instilled in them before the 5th one in 100 years can get it. Okay, so until we reach then, African people from Africa got to understand we have to chart that path to greatness. They were born in greatness. Okay, we have to chart that path, and part of charting that path, I'll round it up here. And part of charting that path is looking out for each other, no matter what. These guys are sitting next to me, giving me hell, and I'm beating them on the shoulder. But still, it just, you know, it's what it do with your people.
You say when I am white people
first met us as black people, they called us childish. They said we were childlike. That's not an insult. That's a compliment. That means that we had no life that was that fucking serious, where we had to act like we were somebody. Okay, we had a childlike spirit, and even in that movie, Django, they talked about that. Oh, the black people brain ain't, nigga. We just high level. We're so surplus as a community and a society with our grains, with our cows, with our milk. We're surplus. That we got time to sit around and clown out 8 days a week and work 1. Capitalism teach you to wake up every day and be so stern and serious and working at the game to beat the man. African people, we ain't trying to beat the man. When I bring people in here on my shoulders with no legs, we are trying to beat nothing. No fight.
Hey.
No fight.
Hey.
Oba, I have a question burning in me.
Yes.
Why did your why did your father choose South Carolina to establish the village? What's your thoughts and reflections on the Low Country?
Give them.
Because of these boys' ancestors right here. You see the difference in my skin tone and the difference in his. He mixed with some Cherokee from upstate, and then you see it get darker as you go.
Cut that out, Kaviesi. Daniel Pure
Yemassee.
Daniel Pure Yemassee all up in it.
Yeah, Pure Yemassee. Daniel looks like Yemassee
up in it.
The South is less full of shit than anywhere else you want to be.
Yeah, that part.
Had more
Thank you, sir. But yeah, you see his features.
We never had nothing.
Those are African Yemassee. Hey. So to answer your question, why my father chose South Carolina, because Chief, a man by the name of Chief Ogunseye, he was like, my dad put him in charge of Philadelphia later on, but Chief Ogunseye, he was the one who told my dad, go to South Carolina. If you go to South Carolina, they have some people down there called the Gullah-Geechee. He said, if there's any place you want to take this out of New York, because people in New York can understand everything, then he said, take this to South Carolina, because them people know about it. They have a thing called root that they do. Root any? Yeah. They got a thing called root that they do. And if there's any place in America besides New Orleans, which you never get in, South Carolina and the Geechee land is the place to go, because they understand this African shit. And so when my dad set up shop, he set the village up, and out of nowhere, all the Geechee people knew what he was up to.
Wow.
He was in Savannah and went broke. He was in North Carolina and went broke. He come to Geechee land in Sheldon, South Carolina, where they put everything on this man gable. They teach him how to plant maida, teach him how to plant corn. They say, what you doing to build a house on the ground? Well, you need to put that house up 2 feet because there's been a flood around y'all. Geechee land, he said, but guess what happened? Once he decided to come here, he came here and set up shop. And guess what? He picked the perfect spot in the world for the reintroduction of African culture to African people in the whole freaking diaspora in North America. Sheldon, South Carolina was the best spot. Yes. Beaufort, South Carolina is actually better, and Charleston is even more superb, but that's all built out. Those are cities. You don't want to be in a city. You want to be in a free land. Okay? So my pops came out here, they started building houses out of the trees. The local people like, we got a hardware store y'all could go to. My dad said, no, we don't want the hardware store. We want to build our own houses from zero to prove to ourselves that we can do that. And then, a couple years down the road, we'll start going lows. So my dad started building houses, taking the poles, they call them pole, which is a tree about 4 inches in diameter, and use those as your 2x4s, as your rafters, as your framing. And then instead of putting roofing on the house like Owens Corning, my dad was off the chain. Now the Geechee people sit back like, look at this boy, y'all. Where he been to come from? And he have white anyway. They said my dad would go in the field and take the grass, the tall grass, and put the grass on the roof instead of roofing. Yes. Can't smoke in that house. Ain't no smoking in there or cooking food. Got burned down here. So the Geechee people made sure that the African Americans who came from New York knew what they were getting into, and establishing their concept and establishing their permaculture when it comes to the land. So my father decides that, hey, this is what we're going to do. So we're going to stay in South Carolina. We ain't leaving. But he didn't know that surrounding the village that he created is 13 plantations where Africans were enslaved. Actually, the whole back line of the village is a plantation. If you step on that line, you back in slavery again. But if you stay on this side of the property, you in Africa. Okay, you ain't even in America. So my dad established that village in the midst of plantation country. Okay, and guess what happened? If I walk behind the village about 300 yards, guess what I walk into? The lakes where African people grew rice, water. And the infrastructure is still there. All of the ditches they dug, all of the things that they did, you won't know it if you're not into archaeology for your people. But learning archaeology, you can look at the lay of the land and see how African people permanently changed the land of South Carolina in the Low Country from Georgetown, South Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. Permanently digging ditches. Sometimes if the crackers wanted to make a rice paddy and they ain't had no river nearby, they'll make the Africans dig a ditch 10 miles. Yes. And the ditch had to be 30 feet wide for 10 miles. No heavy equipment, only donkeys and rudimentary shovels. No, serious talk. This is what Oyotunji sits in. So, like, my dad always tell people, my dad didn't choose this area. My father didn't choose this area. This area chose him.
Wow. Thank you, Baba.
Yeah, this area chose him.
And
I gotta.
So you being there, right? In 2023, what's your thoughts on the relevance of the Carolinas moving into the future?
You on mute, Kaviesi.
My audience in here is off the chain. My audience in here is off the train. I'm trying to calm down the audience. So yeah, that's a good question, Baba. Because here we are in 2022. And my whole life growing up in the village, all I saw was white people come here to visit the village or take a tour. When black people came here, they act all shy, and I ain't act all shy and scary up and all that. So it wasn't until what year did the Charleston 9 happen, when that European devil went up there and killed those people? And I ain't racist, but if you're European, if you're white, clearly you're European. And if you do an act like that, you're a devil. Okay? So it wasn't until the Charleston 9 happened that I walked out in my parking lot and I saw all of these cars. I'm like, we never got tourists like this every day.
Kaviesi. We got to offer clarity, man. Some folks might not know what you're talking about. Charleston 9. You mean the massacre at the
the massacre when what's the boy name? Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof went up there and shot our councilman. Yes, he shot up all of the people in the church because he was trying to start a race riot.
2016.
He was trying to start a race war. Yeah, 2016. Okay. Well, that was the year that I seen the most black people come to Oyotunji. Now, remember, I said that it's all a setup, right? It's all a setup. So that basically means that 2016 was when the white boy wanted to start a race riot. I walk out in my parking lot and I see all type of cars from all over Virginia, Kentucky, Florida, New York, California. And I was like, why are all these people here? It was the European white people, the children of these plantation people whose land we still inhabit. They were coming to the village to take a tour while they were in town, because as soon as the Charleston 9 happened, if you was a local, you didn't know our highways was busy. Every white person in America, and black people too, with the AKs and the ARs, descended on Charleston for real. But the white people showed up in some super apologetic type of energy they had, to the point where they was like, well, let's go by the African village and give our last little apology to the little skirt wearing nut people, And they came to the village, did a tour. I'm talking about, I seen this for like at least 3 months after the Charleston 9. Okay, now here's where we come in. After that Charleston 9, remember I said black people came to South Carolina too. They started coming. I start seeing these young people coming to the village in Rasta colors and, dread colors and Marcus Garvey colors and, the red, gold, and green, red, black, and green. Different ways, configuration. Then I see a lot of young people coming from Charleston, where it actually happened. A lot of young people coming down here. And I'm like, where y'all from? Oh, we born from Charleston. We born from Charleston. You born from Charleston. What you do in the village? Boy, I try to find my culture. I try to find out who I is, because, I know I ain't from Europe. I ain't from Africa. I want to know who I born. I come to you, King. So I'm like, wow, I'm seeing this trend. And it started going, and I'm like, it never stopped. Sometimes they turn the trickle on and they turn it off. It just kept going. Now you get more readings online, more young black people interested in our website, coming to festivals. I'm not talking about people who deep like everybody on the call and everybody that might be watching this video in the future. I'm talking about brothers from just off the street. Their ancestors are talking to them. They ain't reading no book. They just got an inspiration that, yo, something wrong. I need to go to the African village. And they just kept coming. And then, clearly enough, the George Floyd years hit, as I call them. It wasn't nothing but a playback of the 60s, because Uranus was in the same position as it was in the 60s. Nothing but a playback of power. But the idea is that the George Floyd years brought a double amount of young black people. So I spent the better part, under the 2016, I spent the better part of 20, 30 years in Oyotunji African Village and never saw an influx of young black African people interested in what we're doing. Now The game has changed. We got to beat them back with a stick, bro.
Wow.
I'm talking about young people want to come here and make us, you got to give me the ritual tonight. No. I ain't going to pressure us. We got a system. We got protocols, okay? This ain't the street, okay? I love the fact that we love our culture, but while you learn your culture, you got to learn protocol, manners of the African, protocols of the African, understanding of the African, and all that, you see? And we get the grand opportunity to just teach people all the time. And it's amazing. It's an amazing job, and we're thankful to have it.
Ashe. Kaviesi, before we get off this, I have to make note about South Carolina. The Gullah-Geechee Wars. You know, these folks we call Gullah, South Carolina lowland coastal region, basically from Myrtle Beach all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida, was one of the last strongholds for indigenous Americans of all different hues, you know, and carry out their indigenous cultural traditions without colonial, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that leads into a larger conversation, indeed.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. That's a we got to do
because
a
you got to
whole
remember
call on that. But
this
when
area,
Ross asked
South
that
Carolina
question,
is
why
first.
South Carolina? Why
South Carolina is first?
Because it's an old ancient sacred land, bro. It's been a sanctuary from a long time. Not unlike Philadelphia, but because the climate ain't for everybody. You know what I'm saying? We got the swamps, we got the isthmus in Jacksonville. We got regions where only recently you know, the modern world has been able to get in there and sway their dominance. Hilton Head being a prime example. Hilton Head ain't 100 years old yet, man. It's maybe only 50, 60, 70 years, you know. But prior to industrialization, they couldn't get back up in them sea islands, you know. So it was a refuge for indigenous people of all walks, you know. Yeah, and so the African villages right there in the nexus, in the navel, in the bosom of this sanctuary, which was Gullah country, you know. Yeah. And they firm. What you say to mine? When the man show you the picture to his right, Ross, you done your research. The Yemassee, they got Yemassee in Mississippi, way down there in there, what they call it, Poverty Point. Yeah, and they got Yemassee right there. The next county up from where the African villages is Yemassee, man. It's them folks, they don't speak no English tongue. They don't speak no, they got their own ways in which they move. And the brother who's sitting right beside the Oba is a master mason. That dude, Daniel, yeah, man, the roots run deep in them parts, man. The bloodlines run deep in the low country.
And even why I asked that question is because I felt it. You know, that little time I was in the low country, I said, "Man, it's different down here. It's
the bloodlines run deep, proper." And we're like in Philly, a lot of us been forced off the land. We've been moved. No, we ain't like unlike any other major groups, but because of the low country, they couldn't get into them backwaters for a long time. Them bloodlines persisted for really up until just the last century, and they still there. You know what I'm saying? Them bloodlines are still there, bro. Them folks, that's why they don't talk like the rest of us Americans speaking the King's English. You know, I don't know if you peeped how when Oba was explaining the cats from Charleston, man, how he could spit out that dialogue, that dialect, man. It don't sound like something you hear in America. It sounds like something you hear in the islands.
In the islands, yeah.
No, you don't get that. But let me go back to the Yemassee thing. The Yemassee nation.
You buffering, Kaviesi, you buffering.
Because when we say Yemassee, we're thinking of the Yemassee was an umbrella governing body, if you will. Is that better? Is that better?
That's better. Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
Hold
that's
on,
better.
Okay, let me 1 second. Okay, that's better?
Yes.
Okay, so what I was saying, you follow?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, the Yemassee is an umbrella term for a lot of different nations. Okay, just in our area, under the Yemassee umbrella is the Hulefini, the Pocotaligo, the Kusahachi, the Kumbahi, the Ashepu, We also have the Kaka. We have the Creek. You see, there are so many different nations, and I can't even remember them all right now because they're right in our area. Ashepu, Kombahi, and the Edisto. Edisto was the name of a nation as well. Edisto. They fell under the Yemassee umbrella. So when people say Yemassee, they're really talking about, according to the chief or the king of the Yemassee people today, Chief Blackfeather, he said that the Yemassee people are actually the Creek. And the Creek stretched throughout Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina, and Louisiana, throughout the South, basically. So the Yemassee are an umbrella nation. Under Yemassee fell the Cherokee as well. The Yemassee, they could have did a better job. And I ain't gonna bust their balls because I wasn't there. But had they did the best job that they possibly could do, we would not be speaking English or Spanish right now. Because when the British landed in Beaufort, which is the first place the British came in order to set up their America, and that's why we're speaking English to this point right now, is because the Yemassee traded with the British. They work with the British. You know, African nature people always work with each other. They didn't think the British were sharks and snakes. They work with the British. They traded deer skins because there's so many deer in this area. We were sending deer skins to Europe like there was no tomorrow. Okay? Thousands of deer skins every year going to Europe. Okay? And see, we got so many creeks in the Beaufort area. The creeks been like highways. And our creeks don't go 1 to 2 miles in. Our rivers and creeks, we got 1,000 of them all around us. I can't name them all, but it's clearly it's tens of them. And they all run hundreds of miles inland. So a European man could park his boat up here in Beaufort and then take his daggone canoe way up the creek and go all the way up to Columbia or Santee and trade with the Santee people. Get deer skin from Santee and take the creek all the way back and load it on the boat. Beaufort was just the perfect area for things to happen, to get goods from inland and bring them to port and ship them to Europe. Because remember, Europeans had capitalism on their mind. So they encountered the Yemassee, and the Yemassee got upset with them because they were getting, they were doing bad deals. Okay? They were doing bad deals. And so the Yemassee got very upset because they would trade skins and they wouldn't bring back the proper money or whatever the currency was. So one day they told the trader, they said, look, you represent the British government. You need to tell them this. We want this or we're going to shut it down. So the British government sent their liaison, their messenger back to the Yemassee Nation here in the country. And they said, look, we're not going to have it no more. So they took the European guy, they took him, hung him on a tree, and they took fat lighter. I don't know if you know what fat lighter is, but fat lighter is the centerpiece of a pine tree. It ain't nothing but gasoline. It's basically gasoline, like natural gasoline in the middle of a pine tree. So they took it and cut it into shards, and they stabbed it all in every part of his body, these shards, and they lit each one on fire and burnt them up. And then they sent them back to Beaufort to the British, burnt up with the shards in his body. I think they even sent him, he was on fire when they sent him back. And so the British got upset. And the British said, you know what? We're going to get y'all Yemassee people, because get what? Y'all tripping. The Yemassee people said, oh, hell no. Before you get us, we coming. And so the Yemassee people went and burnt Beaufort, South Carolina. They burnt Beaufort to the ground. If you want to know about it, just go downtown. It was like 1711, I think. Just go downtown Beaufort. They got a plaque to tell you the whole story. But the Yemassee people fought to the very end. They were the last stronghold for this, what we call this modern age of America, was the Yemassee people. And they decimated them. So what the Yemassee people ended up doing was, clearly the British got more firepower, so they backed up and they pushed towards Florida. St. Augustine. They all went down to St. Augustine, Florida. The Spanish people promised that if y'all beat the British ass up there in South Carolina, when you get to Florida, we'll give you free housing, free property. You can be a free African, not really free, but kind of free. So that is why Florida is known for having so many black towns, because all of the Gullah-Geechee and Yemassee people went down there, okay, and set up and started blending with what we call the Seminole today. So the Seminole ain't nothing but the Gullah-Geechee and Yemassee. And some whatever native people that were there at the time, because when the Yemassee got to Florida, they showed the local native people, the Osceola and all those different people, they showed them how to deal with the Europeans and how to fight them. Okay, and a lot of these Seminole people, when the Civil War rolled around, a lot of these quote unquote Yemassee, Seminole mixed together, whatever they called themselves, started to join the 54th Infantry that fought a big war down there at Olusley, Florida. Okay, you can look up Olusley, Florida. There's a big deal about Africans coming down here and whipping them Europeans behind, for their quote unquote freedom. But the point about the Yemassee Wars is that the Yemassee Wars were anytime the local people here had to fight a European, that was a Yemassee War. Okay. Now, how did Black people get associated with the Yemassee? Because there's this big conversation that slavery never happened. Black people was here all the time. Well, if there's any story about Black people being here pre-slavery or pre-British, is what I like to say, pre-British, it has credibility in history in this area, especially local lore, because it said that the Spanish people came here in 1565. When you go to school, you learn about 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Well, we're missing 100 years here, people. Okay, from 1565, when the Spanish first set foot here, to 1492, that's more than 100 years, right? Okay. Basically, what I'm saying is that the Spanish came, they set foot here, and they called this the land of Chicora. They set foot here, and they took one of the local native people back to Spain with them. And the local guy told the King of Spain and the Queen of Spain, I don't know how they was able to transduce his language, some kind of way they did it, but he told the Queen of Spain, I come from the land of gold. Where I come from, gold is everywhere, which is true. North America is full of gold everywhere, as you know. That's where you get the football team 49ers from, because of gold. Gold is everywhere. And he told the Queen, this is maybe 1566, okay? He told the Queen of Spain what was over here. And she said she's sending a galleon over here, a big, huge Spanish galleon to come and explore and set up shop. They set up shop at a place called Paris Island, right over here in Beaufort. A place called Paris Island is the oldest fort of Europeans ever touching this land we call America today. Okay. Now, when they came in 15 whatever and set up shop, no, when they came in 1565 and picked up the local man and took him back, and he told him about the land of Chicora, because South Carolina wasn't called Carolina, it was called Chicora. Okay? It was called the land of Chicora. So when they took the Indian guy back, about 300 Africans who was on the ship as shipmates and slaves, they jumped ship and never got back on the ship and went back to Spain. They stayed. It is documentation in Congress whereby the generals, when they came down here during the Civil War, they said, look, like there's a group of people down here that are clearly not, the Gullah-Geechee African slaves. Because we see how they behave. Yes, sir. Massa. He said there's another group of people. These motherfuckers don't even report to nobody. And they're Black. And they look native. They have straight hair because they had blended with the people. Remember, by the Civil War was what? 1862, 1863? I told you that these Africans jumped ship from Colonel Pedro, who was the head of the ship. They jumped ship in 1565. So from 1565 to 18, that's like 200 some odd years. These people got to proliferate. They got to start screwing the local people and making babies, and everybody dance. Because, Africans, when we go places, we don't take over the culture. We join the culture.
Hey,
they join the culture. And so,
Bob,
go ahead.
Can I just be clear? So these would be like Moors. These would be like European. They from the continent of Europe and Spain, but they look like a Black man. Is this or look like, who a melanated person?
Who are you speaking of? The Africans or the people who was
these people you're talking about that jumped ship? Who jumped ship?
No, the people that jumped ship was straight from Africa. Let's go down. Grab my charger.
All right.
It's getting dark. The people that jumped ship was straight from Africa. They came over with Commander Pedro and helped to found the first fort in North America. It was called Santa Elena. It's about 13 miles from here. They jumped ship and stayed, about 300 of them. Okay, and they joined the local Yemassee people. So when I hear this talk about black people were the original people, we are the Yemassee people are African. Yeah, it's African, but it's because of this happened. African people decided to stay instead of go back with the Europeans, and they proliferated and mixed with the people for over 200, 15, 16, 17, 18, for almost 300 years, they had proliferated with these people. So when the generals, American Union Army came here, they wrote back and said, it's a group of people here that ain't regular niggas. Okay? These people are totally different. They got a whole nother ball game going on. They don't talk like them. They don't act like how people who've been enslaved acted. The government knew how they acted, but they saw this different group of black people, but they didn't know what to call them. Now, today, we know they are the Yemassee. And truth to be told, about 2 weeks ago, the chief of all Yemassee in America was here in Oyotunji.
Wow.
Yep. He came down here to break bread, and he invited us to come celebrate with them. They're going to have the breaking of the green corn. That means they call it green corn. That's the harvest or the planting. So,
Kaviesi, I should have known better. We couldn't get you into no half-hour, 45-minute slot, man. I think we're approaching 2 hours, King. And
already?
It's all too apparent that this ain't the end of our conversations. We got to do it again, man. But just for the sake of time and just, you know what I mean? You know how it goes, man. People's attention span ain't but on average so long. The folks who've been following up on these things, they say they're loving it. They want more. But right, I already see how it goes, man. I already know how we do. When we get into the Hoda, we can sit and reason for hours, man. But we are in this generation where these folks' attention span might be 45 minutes max, I'm loving what we got, bro.
That's right. Well, you can go ahead and edit it down and edit it. I just try to throw a lot of things out there so that, and everything we talked about or said, you can go ahead and follow up in textbooks, encyclopedias, and things like that if people still use them. But you can go to Google. Google can help you out.
I don't see how we can shave any of this off, bro. It's a wealth of information, history, mystery, prophecy. You was a living archive, brother. I can't commend you enough, man. I'm humbled that you was my brethren. And I got access to you on a personal thing like this, where you'll take this call and allow us to share your wealth with the communities that are interested in what we're doing, bro. So the highest of salutes, Kaviesi. Highest of salutes.
Yes.
I share.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for your time and your service. And
this is what we do, Baba. It's what we do. It couldn't have been no different than it can be now. Interestingly enough, when you were texting me earlier, I was on a call with a brother from the SCDC, South Carolina Department of Corrections, and he's in there, and he's like, "Yo, King, I ain't gonna tell him who he is or where he at, but South Carolina is big, cause they try to get after him." He said, "I'm about to sue these Oyimbos or these Europeans because they're denying us the opportunity to practice our culture." And he using my dad's vernacular when he's doing this. When you go up against the crackers, you got to use my dad's vernacular, which is their own words against them. Freedom of what? Well, okay. Well, if there's freedom of this, guess what? You Europeans, if I just write it out, I can clearly state that you separated us from our shit. Okay. And we had our own tradition and culture. It wasn't Rasta. It wasn't Jamaican. It wasn't island. It come from Africa. Everything come from Africa. Everything come from Africa. So can we get back to the root of where everybody, the Islam, the Christian, they all come from Africa. So you're denying the root. Now, this is all anthropologically proven that from the bush came all other religions. So I told him to keep fighting, brother, and take it all the way back to the needle end of history and anthropology. Because you can't deny what's been written in history. And we shall have just like the Muslims have a house of worship in the jail, just like the Christians have a house of worship in the jail. African spirituality shall have a place because it is the root. It is what they disconnected us from. So it was powerful that you was calling while I was on the phone with that brother, and he's pushing hard. I told him, be careful now. Anybody in your position going up against them folks like you doing it, you know, you better get your readings and do your bars and talk to your ancestors, because get what? Them folks don't play.
Got you already.
So it's very powerful that all of this is happening at the same time.
At the same damn time. At the same damn time. There ain't no such thing as a coincidence, Kanye. Synchronicity is the language of the ancestors, brother. You know what it is. Yeah. Synchronicity is the language of the ancestors. Yes. Yes. Hey, Ross,
so I'm happy. We talked the sundown, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man. Hey, bro. Hey, it's a holy high honor to have you on the call, Kaviesi. You bubbling up. You're bubbling up from the fountain with wealth, knowledge, mystery, history, prophecy. So, man, like I say, I'm humbled all the more that I can call you my brethren, that you know me by name, that we go back 25 plus years, and we still study on these works, man. We still study on these works. This is it, man. This is the mortar that holds the bricks together. You know what I'm saying?
Looking forward to seeing you for the men's festival, man. Looking forward to seeing you, Baba.
You know, damn right.
You got to take care of the home front,
like
the home front taken care of, and then can't wait to see you. We're gonna have some brothers in here. We're gonna be doing building. We're gonna be doing challenging. We're gonna have drumming,
it's gonna be a men's festival like none other.
Yeah, we're gonna have all of the party favors, but we're gonna do some work.
Yeah. There. Yo, this gonna be the Dark Way. This gonna be the Dark Way festival, King.
Set me
Dark
Way.
Yeah,
Dark Way. And the concept of Dark Way is basically the men's work gang, loosely translated. But the concept of Dark Way comes from Dahomey. They said if you see a Dark Way in Dahomey, it's a sight to see. You never seen so many people enthusiastic about doing work. When the last time you seen people singing songs while they're doing work? I mean, you know. And so the Dark Way represents how the nation got. So if you saw that movie, The Woman King, and you see all of the palaces, everything built, the Dark Way built that. That was the king's public work crew. They built up everything, and they were considered sacred beings. The builders of the nation are sacred beings. These are priests. It's a story that one time King Gezo, the same king you saw in that movie, Woman King Gezo, was walking past the Dark Way, and the king and the chief of the Dark Way, his name is the Dark Way God. The Dark Way God jumped down and made the king salute the Dark Way. Now you know that's unheard of. You can't tell the king nothing back, and them will be beheaded. But the head of the work gang has as much power as the king because they're the builders. That's why when you go to Miami, all of them big contractors building all those skyscrapers, they flying in drugs, corruption, everything. But they get away with it because they the builders. The Masons is a whole bullshit society today. You go to the Masons Club, it's cool being a Masons. You might get out of some tickets. But a Mason is a compass, a square, and a level. You go to the Mason Hall, and nobody in the Mason Hall know how to use a compass, square, level. Something is terribly wrong, people. But guess what? They had a whole spiritual society built around building things. Remember, the first priest in the world. If you want to go all the way back to Africa and go back to Syria and Persia and what's that, Baghdad and all those places out there. If you could build a dome and make it stand freely on its own, guess what you told people? God inspired me. So that is the root of the Masons. The root of the Masons is people building things that nobody else could build. And they said, the only reason I could build it is because God inspired me, or Goddess inspired me. And I did it. And then, of course, from there, everybody worshiped these people like they were somebody. And they eventually became the Masons.
Wow.
But it's about building. Builders are sacred in African culture. Just wanted to go about that.
Give thanks for that.
Not warriors. Everybody want to be a warrior because they seen Shaka Zulu. Shit. Fool, kill me with that. Shaka Zulu was a less than 100-year period in African history.
Kanye, your cup is running over, man. Golly,
Yes.
bro, you won't stop. Goodness gracious. A wealth
Gotta
of
hit him.
look,
You gotta hit him hard.
Hey,
Gotta hit him
Yeah,
hard.
yeah, yeah. Give
Oyotunji.
thanks.
Oyotunji.
That's what the
Oyotunji,
people need
African
to hear
village
right now. We're in such a
Oyotunji,
time
African
of
village.
spiritual
And
darkness.
anybody
We need
out
some light.
there need to support any African endeavor. I don't care if you like the people or you don't like the people. Because Jewish people, I know a Jewish guy, he used to curse the man out, but he would pass every black store and go shop with the man he was cussing out all the way there. Okay, they gonna look out for their own. I don't like the way they did Dr. Umar. Now he got to school. Now what? You see how we do? You see how we do? Every time. And that's sad because we acting like we acted like right out of sharecropping. No, we ain't gonna do that. We're gonna support our brother. I bet the Europeans support Epstein and Clinton, Donald. They support each other. Oh yeah, they support each other. Now, I'm not saying we need to support people with negative energy and behavior, but if we see you got the vision and the light, let's back you up till you prove us otherwise. That's all I'm saying. Ashe.
We support each other because they're in business.
Ashe. So one love to all your listeners. One love to the Iras them. One love to the Lion of Eternity, Emperor Haile Selassie.
Cut him all way. Rastafari. Baba Janai.
You see, people always say, well, why you give out Emperor Haile Selassie praise before you do your father? I said, it ain't about that. I'm going back to the lines of kings that go back to Menelik, go back to Pianki. You see what I'm saying? Go all the way back to the Nubians. Once you give respect to the emperor, you give respect to all line of kings.
All them bloodlines. Yeah, man.
So we just going back to the beginning in our time.
All right.
Okay, that's all. That's all. Ain't no race, no hate, no prejudice.
Yes, all right. Yeah, man. Hey, we got to bring you on again, Kaviesi. Yo, your joint, you like a teapot. That joint is the top.
All right, well, let me know next time you're ready. I'll be here, Baba.
Yeah, man. You already know how we do, King. It's a holy high honor, like I say, to call you my brother and to have you as a resource to get this information and to use the technology so the folks who need to hear it can get it, bro. You know? Hey, what I always say, our generation is not the weakest link. We are not the weakest link, brother. And we got everything we need to make sure that those who's coming on our heels got what they need to do what? Organize, centralize, and find your roots. Know who you are so you can know where you're going. If we don't know from whence we've come, we cannot know where we're going. King Sankofa Adat. So yeah, man. Hey, we commend you. We honor you for the resource that you are. And we coming in with strength, man. We're gonna continue to bring strength for the perpetuity of Oyotunji.
In perpetuity.
It's a bright shining star in this sacred space called South Carolina, man. Your father knew what he was doing. He could have went to any other state, bro. He brought it here because the roots run deep in South Cackalack. You have to know that. Yeah, the roots run deep down here.
It's a wealth of knowledge to know.
Yeah, the roots run deep.
So if I had to say one thing, about South Carolina and Oyotunji as it is, if America or the African culture restoration movement of black people trying to find themselves was a belt, the Carolinas and Oyotunji would be the buckle.
Is the buckle. Carolina is the buckle. Cause look,
the buckle.
Man, we're gonna be on here we're gonna be on here all damn night, Kanye.
Okay, love you, Baba. Take care.
No, look, but I gotta share you this point, right? One more point.
Share it with me.
Right here in Columbia, where we got, they venerate this cat called Jackson. You know what I'm talking about? The guy named Andrew, the man on the $20 bill,
Andrew.
right? They venerate that cat. That's why he's on a $20 bill, right? Why? Because he did the atrocity that ended the Gullah Wars. He was the one that found the women and children, massacred them, and killed the spirit of the Gullah warriors. You know what I'm saying? He was the one that engineered what they call the Trail of Tears. you know, marching people.
Yes.
And it wasn't just the marching of indigenous people out of South Carolina. It was an edict. If you want to be east of the Mississippi, what? You cannot claim no indigenous lineage no more. If you're gonna be over here, it's a nigga. If you can be a nigga, you can stay here and work for us. But if you want to be a Blackfoot, if you want to be a Yemassee, if you want to be Kusahatchee, you got to take that walk to Oklahoma.
You got to take that elsewhere.
Yeah. So a lot of the folks didn't take the walk. They just said, you know what? I'd rather stay on my land. I'll just be a nigga. Maybe not seeing the long-term implications. You know what I mean? But again, that's a whole nother conversation, man. This is a big part of like the mystic magic, the ancestors that are here, that are waiting for us, Kabiesi, to recognize who we are. You know, this what you say, Rospo, when you come down here and you feel it, it's a whole bunch of souls. What they call that part of Oya Shrine, the folks who got lost in the Middle Passage and whatnot. There's a couple things in the Oya Temple, and one of them is the one that is the souls that was the ancestors that we don't remember their name. What's that one called again, Kabiesi?
Oh, Dambalawedo, the ancestors whose names we do not know.
Dambalawedo, King, South Carolina.
Dambalawedo, South Carolina.
South Carolina is sanctuary for the Dambalawedo, and they waiting on us, Kabiesi.
I share.
Waiting on us, brother. They're waiting on us for us to recognize who we are. And like, remember, I don't know if y'all into these movies, but you remember if you watched The Lord of the Rings, right? I know you watched The Lord of the Rings, right?
I don't like European movies about devilish behavior.
Did you watch it? All right.
No Potter,
right.
no rings, no scorpion.
All right, I got children. They be into that, man. So we watch it. But the last, right?
I watched Caesar and Claudius and all them crazy dudes.
All right. Well, for those who might watch this video, just to give them a context, right? The last episode of The Lord of the Rings, the first trilogy, right? The end battle, the epic battle at the end. There was a point where they were outnumbered. They didn't have the manpower. They didn't have to combat this force that was coming upon them, right? So they had to go to the mountain. They had to go to consult these folks who
Hold on, I need a charger. Danny, he don't get a charger. I see my thing spinning. Nito, give me a charger.
About to lose you.
Yeah, give me a charger. About to lose.
If we lose you, they just have to wait for the next episode. Hey, they gotta wait for the next episode for that one, Ross.
All right. Well, yo, what? Man.
Right. Wealth, bro. I'm telling you, that cat is bubbling up from the fountain. Yeah, man.
So give thanks for that.
I think we've been on here for about 2 hours, man.
Give thanks, man. The people well full of knowledge and information, history, mystery, and prophecy after that one right there.
We can't cut them things short, man. We got to give them what they want, you know?
Yeah, man. So look, until such time, you know, what we're going to say, steady on our good works.
You know what it is, King. Steady upon your good works, Rasta.
Yes, I.
And we'll do it again and again and again. Give the people what they want, you know?
Every time. All right, brethren.
Bless up.
Respect.
Hey, so look.